Hey guys, how you going? And welcome back to another In the Sheds. We've got a lot to cover today. As per usual, it is Wednesday, and obviously this is the time we talk about all the live sport across the world. And right now we've got European football to start. We've also got some AFL. We've got some rugby league, got the Super Rugby that'll probably go on to its own little section on the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel that you need to bloody damn well subscribe to and check out if you have not already. But there is just so much to get on. But before I welcome in Hayden, who is the Entertain House, who is our co-host, I do need to say, obviously, we did have a podcast coming out with Greg Bird, and fantastic chat with him. We really got all about rugby league and all about the player culture and stuff like that. It was really fun, but unfortunately, we had serious audio issues that couldn't come out on Sunday. So if you are listening to this and were wondering, where was the In the Sheds on Sunday? That was the only one. That was recorded quite a while ago when we didn't have the right audio equipment, and unfortunately, it just wasn't able to come out because it just wasn't great. So we really do appreciate Greg coming on, and hopefully we can try and organise him again for the future. But yes, Greg Bird's one unfortunately won't be coming out. But that's enough of that negative news. And let's start getting into some amazing live sporting chat with the big fella, Entertain House. How you going, champion?
Looking forward to it, mate. Yeah, it's a real bummer we couldn't get the Greg Bird out for you guys, but got plenty of guests coming up, and very soon we'll be celebrating a little milestone of our 20th episode. I think that's 20 episodes, little milestone.
Next week, mate. Next week, because this is 18 and 19 this Sunday with Ivan Gonzalez from the Chicago White Sox. That comes out this Sunday. I'm wearing my cubby, so unfortunately, Ivan's...
Yeah, I look forward to that little milestone there, so get around us.
Yeah, get around us. See, he's starting to pick up the get around us. He told me on one of the streams, it's like, all I do is say get around us, and now he's saying it himself. And soon he's going to be saying, point of the matter is. There you go.
Nah, you won't catch me saying that. That's your catchphrase.
Well, yeah, point of the matter is that is my catchphrase, and get around us. So first up, we do have the old football. There's a lot to talk about today, not only in Premier League, but also with Australian sport, because, hey, mate, I tell you, it's crazy. The Women's World Cup 2023. Australia has locked up a home field advantage with New Zealand. So Australia and New Zealand have won the Women's World Cup rights for 2023 to be hosted here. We beat out Colombia. Japan obviously jumped out just a couple of days beforehand. And Hayden, what's your thoughts on that one, man? Because that's pretty huge.
Oh, man, that's fantastic, not just for the economy, but for the Australian and New Zealand people. We've always been these kind of brothers in armed nations, but sharing this World Cup will really strengthen our bond, I think. And I think not only Australia and New Zealand, but the whole world will come together to try and watch it, as long as travel should be back by then, 2023.
Yeah, it's 3 years away, surely.
Who knows?
You'd hope so.
But you'd really want to hope so. But no, it's fantastic news, and I love how they breached the social distancing, giving everyone the high fives in the room.
Did you see? I don't know his name. The guy who's like the CEO of the A-League, and he went to give the elbow, but no one. The guy he was giving the elbow to didn't care, and he went to do that, and it was like a mixture of like an elbow and a hand. Like it was like and they just like hugged and embraced. It was really strange.
I didn't. I just saw them all get up, happy, hugging, high fiving, and that's the emotion that you want to see. Obviously, it's a bit of a breach considered, but it's a fantastic achievement. I think everyone involved should be real stoked.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic to see, because obviously a lot of emotion and passion went into it, and it doesn't just take 2 weeks to organise a bid for a World Cup. It doesn't take 2 weeks to and that's how much the media was kind of getting onto it. Like, was it gone?
I was going to say a lot of athletes got behind this in regards to hashtagging. I'm not sure what the hashtag exactly was, but on Instagram, our man Archie Thompson, Ash Barty, people like that were getting behind this World Cup coming to Australia, and I think that had a lot to do with it as well.
I think it's going to be great. Not only because look, I'm a little bit of a negative, and this is, I don't want to put a dour point on the bid. And I love the women's game. I really am an advocate for it, and I love to see the growth of it. We've actually got a couple of women's players coming on in the next couple of weeks. Maitland Brown in the cricket, and we've got Priscilla Hon in the women's tennis. And I love the women's game. However, obviously, the men's football World Cup is, that's watched by over 2 billion people and stuff. And the Women's World Cup was fantastic to watch when I think it was last year or 2 years ago. No, it was last year when the Women's World Cup was, when USA won it. Fantastic watch. But because this bid has now been accepted, I don't necessarily believe the men are going to get a World Cup here in Australia and New Zealand for a very long time. So as much as I'm really looking forward to seeing the women play, I would really have also loved to have seen Australia in the men qualify automatically for a World Cup. We don't have to go through our troubles and stuff like that. So I think that's going to push back that bid for a while, unless, we did see with the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast that there was never ever talk of Brisbane or Gold Coast getting an Olympics, really, or in the near future anyway. But because the Gold Coast had such a successful Commonwealth Games, maybe if we see, and we know that Australia and New Zealand are going to put on a fantastic tournament. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait. Obviously, we're going to be going to it. We're going to be absolutely going to it. But I hope that due to the success of this tournament, it then puts it into the men's category, and we can potentially see a men's World Cup in the near future. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's a talking point to think about, but as you said, I think the start of it, what you said, is the more likely scenario. I personally don't think there'll be a men's World Cup due to this factor. I think they will look at other countries, but look, hopefully it does lay the platform for a future appearance here in Australia or New Zealand. But I think it's going to be the women's one that is going to be the one that we'll see, say, in the next 10 to 15 years.
I know what you're saying. So look, I don't think that either way there's going to be a men's World Cup here in the next 10 to 15 years either, anyway. Like, I know that USA has got it, Japan will go hard out. They're going to go hard out for that. But to bring it back to the Women's World Cup, firstly, the women's game in Australia has definitely been growing through the AFL and the women's football as well. We've seen the rugby league women's game, and this is really going to be something that will explode even more of the women's game into Australia and football into Australia as well, because we saw, remember, 2014-15, Australia in the A-League was really picking up. We saw some fierce rivalries with Western Sydney Wanderers and Sydney FC, the Melbourne Victory and Melbourne City, and they were selling out games. And it's gone massively downhill. And I'm saying, like, everyone was expecting it to be one of the big sports, like compete with the AFL and NRL. But it hasn't been able to do that. It's really regressed massively. And we've obviously seen, Robbie Fowler head back as well. And that was to head back to England and stop coaching managing the Brisbane Roar, which is massively upsetting as a Brisbane Roar fan. But it is what it is. You can understand the situation. But I think that this will really rejuvenate the A-League itself. And even though that's men, it's also going to rejuvenate the support of football in this country.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think football's not going downhill as such, but it definitely hasn't been.
Well, compared to 2015, when it was really hyped up. It was really hyped up.
Yeah, look, I would have said between 2010 to 2015, there was this period where even I was going to games and there were sold out games at venues, Central Coast, Sydney, wherever it be. And you don't see those big crowds anymore. You still see large numbers. Don't get me wrong. You still see large numbers, but it's not as talked about. You won't see the A-League on the front of the paper. It'll be an AFL or an NRL or even a rugby union column. So hopefully this does boost.
That's a problem when you're seeing rugby union in front of football right now. Like, because Australia's got some serious.
Yeah, they've got some stuff to work out.
Yeah, they've got some stuff to work out. But and they've got their Australian rugby union tournament coming back this week. But thoughts on? We obviously beat out Colombia, which is a fantastic country, but they do have obviously there is issues in Colombia. So it would have been, I struggled to see it working as large as it does over here. But thoughts on England and Europe basically voting for, well, not basically, they did vote for Colombia, which is kind of confusing considering, we've always thought that England's like, we're England, you're like our brothers, you're like our, family. And you've gone and you've backstabbed us. You betrayed us. What are your thoughts on that one, man?
Mate, it's real strange, this one. It's real strange. There's a bunch of, I guess, conspiracies going around in my head in relation to if this has got anything to do with the hatred towards Australia from China and England's taking side, or if it's a shot at Australia for the cricket scandal or what's going on. But look, England, they're meant to be our best friends other than New Zealand, but they did vote against us, and maybe they just wanted to see the sport in a different country, a lower class country. Is that the right way to put it?
I'd say third world. Oh, well, I don't even know if Colombia's a third world. Actually, we're getting into controversial times.
Yeah, we're getting into controversial here. So,
but if I use like that lower economic kind of discussion point, I'd say probably third world. But I don't even know if Colombia is third world? Because obviously it's like we're not going to get into the political, social, economic bloody talks
No.
on the sheds, but no, I was confused by it. Like I don't know about the time zone difference. So Australia to England, Australia and New Zealand to England is like a 10-hour difference. So if our games are on at like, 7 p.m. If the games are on at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., which is what the big games would be, because that's what happens in Australia and New Zealand. 7:30, 8 o'clock is when the game would start. So New Zealand's 2 hours ahead. So if that starts at 7:30, 8 Australia time, that'd be on what? Like, I'm not going to do straight up the math right now, but like 10, 11 a.m. in the morning, give or take. So what I'm saying is that like it's not even a terrible time zone. I actually think that they would have a better time comparison with us than it would be with Colombia, unless I'm getting this completely wrong here. But I don't know. It really confuses me because that's actually not a bad time. If it's on like a midday game, which I wouldn't assume, but there could be a couple of rando games in midday. Then yeah, you'd be getting into 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning stuff, but. Like, come on, man. Like, we all know that Australia and New Zealand are the best countries to host this right now. And it's going to be a fantastic tournament. And, we definitely are going to put everything we can possibly can into these tournaments. And hopefully we can get a massive crowd there to back it up. But it's also the opening game. The opening game is potentially, they're talking about potentially the opening game being in New Zealand at Eden Park and the final being at ANZ Stadium. Like, firstly, look, thank you, New Zealand. Love you, New Zealand. Really can't wait to see the tournament in New Zealand. But to get the opening game is pretty massive, man. That's pretty massive.
That's crazy to get the opening game over in New Zealand. It's kind of good, I think, that we've got that final secured. And look, at ANZ, as you said, we both will try and get down to this. And that final, I think we'll be there. Close 100%. To home should be good, especially for me. But no, I don't know about New Zealand hosting the opener. Getting a few games, I would have said, 2, 3 games, probably two.
No, I reckon. Well, no, it's a bigger tournament this time around. So I reckon they could definitely have gotten a few games. Like, yeah, definitely. It's the rugby league that we had the joint World Cup with New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea was there too. They only had their home games though, but. Yeah. No, there's definitely they definitely deserve quite a few games. Not half by any means, at least like I'd say a quarter. So there's like three quarters to Australia, maybe a quarter to New Zealand. Just because, but then again, there's like apparently they're using all 5 stadiums. So Eden Park, like everywhere. Like I don't know all the stadiums in New Zealand. I should know them considering I do Super Rugby streams and all that sort of stuff. But
what are they using within Australia? Have they confirmed?
I'm pretty sure. Well, what I could assume would they be using? They'd use Suncorp. Yeah. I believe they'd use Cbus. They would use ANZ, obviously, or maybe the new Sydney Stadium. Not even ANZ. Maybe the new. And I don't know about Bankwest after all your bloody stuff like this week, mate, with all the terrible ground injuries and all that type of stuff. Apparently, they took the turf. We'll talk about that on the NRL section. But yeah, I'd say they'll probably use the MCG, but I hate the MCG for football. I hate it.
Yeah, nah. And same with the SCG for rugby league or soccer. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I've been to the MCG for both rugby league, AFL rugby league, and football. I was there for Man City versus Real Madrid and Man City versus Roma back in the day in 2016. And I tell you what, like, it's just not good. It's just not good. You can't, like, AFL is round, so everything looks great the whole time. But with NRL and football, it's played on a rectangle. So, like, the point from where the benches are to where the actual seats are is just massive. It's massive. So if you're sitting in the halfway line, which is usually where the best seats are in that ground, usually, you can't even really see shit. Like, you may as well like stay at the Imperial Pub down the street in Melbourne. Like, it's just not good. It's not great. So I'd assume no. I don't know about Optus. I've never been Optus before. I'd assume Adelaide will get a game. But I don't know the specific stadiums that they're talking about. But I think the main ones should be obviously in Sydney and in Queensland due to the fact that we've got all the biggest kind of rectangular stadiums. Because Amy Park, which is Melbourne Storm and Victory and City's home ground, is a rectangle, but I think it's actually a similar stadium size to Cbus maybe. So maybe we could use Amy, but it's a World Cup. You want to get 80,000 people in that stadium. You want to get.
I could see them using Cbus more than I could see them using Amy Park. Not just the reflection of everything going on in Melbourne, but I think in regards to tourism, more money comes out of Brisbane
Mm.
and those Gold Coasty areas, and it will help the economy kind of bounce back from the pandemic as well in the future.
Well, people aren't also realizing, and we'll kind of jump off this in a second to move on to the Premier League and stuff like that. But, people aren't realizing that with everything going on, and this is a really kind of political and social episode here, but people aren't realizing that this is like the beginning of the economic impact of what we've gone through this year with the virus. And obviously this will massively affect sport. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about Robbie Fowler not coming back because Brisbane Roar can't afford him to come back. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And if that's the case, then it could be the beginning signs of an economic depression in sport. And 2023 is probably the best timing for something like this to happen and really, push everything. Like 2022 would be great, but I don't know if we could get ready in time. 2023 is probably the best timing I could think right now to really push a country back into it. The borders from the whole world should be, I don't know about America, but it should be open by then. And it would really, there'd just be like an influx of people wanting to travel, get out of the country, because people would have put that in the back of their mind then. They would be, coming here to, experience Australia, which has got a really good Australia, New Zealand, and New Zealand's really getting rated right now across the world as well. So it's good that Australia's got New Zealand's name in this as well, because both countries are regarded as one of the most beautiful places that everyone wants to see. So I think 2023 is bang on. The borders are open. Everyone's like, let's smack out Australia. Let's go there and watch the Women's World Cup. Obviously, it's not going to be as big as a Men's World Cup, but I think that people will really get around this. And, I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope Australia, we're a good team. We're a good team. And maybe we can win our first World Cup. I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever say that Australia, I don't care what, men or women, I never thought I'd say that Australia could potentially win a football World Cup. I'd cry. It's women's, and I'd probably cry because I know how bad Australia has been. Well, not besides 2006 when we got close by the Italians, I tell you. But we've always struggled with football. It's never been our main sport, and hopefully this can really potentially make it into a main sport. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But let's jump off Australia, and let's actually move over to the Premier League, where obviously there was quite a few things that happened this week, and we obviously saw Liverpool winning the Premier League title for the first time in 30 years. Well, the first time in their history they won the Premier League title, but first division title in 30 years. So congratulations to Liverpool. As a Manchester City fan, congratulations to Liverpool. And it's a hard one to take. A lot of Liverpool fans, and I put a video on my channel congratulating them. Like, to me, we've won 2 years in a row, right? We've won back-to-back. We won the FA Cup last year. We've won 3 League Cups in a row. We're out of control right now. And we're still in the Champions League right now. We're still in the FA Cup. And like I just said, we already won the League Cup this season. So as a City fan, yes, it does hurt that we couldn't go back-to-back. But in the same sense, it's like, we're doing pretty well at the moment, man. We're doing pretty well at the moment. Like, in the meantime of that 30-year gap where Liverpool hadn't won the title, we've been relegated twice. And then also, we won 4 Premier League titles. So it's like, to me, I'm very happy with my club at the moment. I'm very happy with how we're going. And despite the fact that we did falter to bloody your Chelsea bloody scum boys during the week, I can appreciate the length of time. But before you jump in as well, I just want to say the narrative that surrounds Liverpool is ridiculous. How there's been like a long-suffering history for Liverpool in this 30 years without the Premier League. Like, come on, man. Like, Liverpool fans, I respect your club. But to say that your club is a long-suffering club between 30 years where you haven't won the Premier League title, you've won 2 Champions League in between. Like, literally last year you won the Champions League. Like, long-suffering, 44 years is long-suffering, and then winning an FA Cup. I'm sorry, 2005 Champions League. You don't have this narrative written around your club is ridiculous. You've been winning trophies, whether it be the Premier League or not. You've been winning trophies throughout this time, so it's not long-suffering. I'm done ranting. You go.
I want to say congratulations to Liverpool, but I kind of agree with you there in the fact I think of clubs that go through this kind of rebuilding phase that then they come out on top at the end of, say, a 5-year period. And I think that's what Liverpool have done here. They haven't been suffering for, say, 20, 30 years. They have been making your finals appearances and they've been a competitive club. But at the same sense, they've always been that type of not favoritism, but they've always been one of the top picks. They've always been kind of the standard of the competition. It's always been
maybe
Man
besides the
City and Liverpool.
2010 to 2015 period, they had a little bit of a rough trot. Like, actually, yeah, probably 2008 to 2015, they were a bit. How you going? I remember they finished like 8th or 10th to 1 year and finished below Everton. They finished below Everton.
Yeah,
But
that's saying a lot.
I don't want to rip into it. I don't want to rip into.
I'm
I'm not ripping into Liverpool. I'm just saying, like, to claim you've got a long-suffering history when, for example, Manchester City, for one, like literally 20 years ago, we were in the second division. You know, we were in the championship. That's long-suffering. You know, and 2 years prior to that, you know, we just jumped out of the second division. So I don't get it. Like, you've never been relegated. You've always been. Usually, well, pretty much every year you've been top 5, besides maybe a couple of years here and there between 2008 and 2015 or so.
I think what you just said, not being relegated as well, that's one of the big things that makes me think you're not long suffering. Yeah, you've had your moments. Every club has their moment, but you've been through these phases and you've gotten through it. And I think the fact that they're one of the clubs that haven't ever been relegated is a big factor. In that we see a lot of teams drop off and come back, or drop off and gone for good. So
yeah, no, it's well, that's the thing. Well, let's get into a couple of the other things that are a little bit more interesting in regards to the actual league this year. Interesting, Liverpool won, congratulations, but there's a lot more interesting things going on right now besides the title battle. The title battle, because the title was done in December. That's why it wasn't really surprising to me. You know, FA Cup as well is cracking on. We're into the semi-finals now, but let's talk about what's gone on recently. We've got Wolves jumping up into that top 5 spot. This is actually exactly, actually no, sorry. Leicester are 1 point above Chelsea right now in third over Chelsea in fourth, which I've got Chelsea jumping into third, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. I've got Leicester coming down to fourth and Wolves finishing fifth. So Chelsea, which I truly believe they'll get to third. There's no way they jump City in second. Like, City are coming second, guys. I'm sorry. Relax, everyone back there. One loss where, I'm sorry, but it's just happening. Wolves in the fifth, fantastic. They're actually 3 points above United. United have a game in hand, though, and who do they play? They play Brighton, who are trying to avoid the relegation zone. Not necessarily shocking. They're Burnley.
I think that could be a good game, I think that could be a real good game, Brighton and Manchester United.
Burnley into the top 8. Burnley above Arsenal. Sheffield United above Arsenal. Honestly, they're in 10th right now. They could be jumped by Everton. They could be jumped by Everton if they win their next game. And Southampton. Like, honestly, Arsenal. We're not getting to Arsenal. We're not going to get into the Arsenal. But let's, before we jump off the football section of this podcast, let's get into the relegation area. That's what we want to talk about here. That's the good stuff. That's the juicy stuff. Aston Villa, 27 points in 19th. Bournemouth, 27 points in 18th. West Ham, 27 points in 17th. And Watford, 28 points in 16th. There is 1 point difference between 19th and 16th. And if you want to include Brighton, technically they're only 2 wins away. They are only 2 wins away from West Ham, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa. So if Brighton lose to United, they could still technically be in this. What's your thoughts right now? Obviously, you went with West Ham and Bournemouth to get relegated. I went with Aston Villa and Watford to get relegated. We're both right in this right now. What's your updated thoughts?
Updated thoughts, I'd probably go with, I think Norwich are just...
Oh, they're gone.
I didn't even say it. Yeah, you always didn't even say it. I thought that. But West Ham, I think they're going to win a couple games towards the end, and they're going to avoid that section.
That's why I'm still going to stick ridiculous for tipping against them.
Well, I'm going to say that I think Bournemouth will. I think Bournemouth are still a chance. They're still, what are they now? 2 points? Did you say?
No, they're on 20. They're on the exact same points as Aston Villa and West Ham. They're on 27 points.
I'm still going to say it. I'm still going to stick by that. I think I'll move West Ham out. I think West Ham will kind of come good and shock a lot of people in these next couple games. Not against Chelsea, though.
Well, you said West Ham and Bournemouth, so you said that Aston Villa and Watford are going to be safe. Because Aston Villa right now, I put Aston Villa in 19, so I'm right at my 19 and 20 right now, if it stays the same. All I need is Watford, who are 1 point above West Ham and Bournemouth, to jump down. And I'm still pretty happy with what I said. I'm still pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with saying Aston Villa. I'm not happy about it, but I'm happy with what I said is going to probably happen. So obviously Norwich, I didn't even mention them. They're done. We got a lot of hate from Norwich fans, by the way, when we posted a video of our relegation with them being there. They were like, oh, we just beat Tottenham in the FA Cup. Yeah, okay, cool. You're also about to not play them next year while you're in the Championship. Aston Villa, 19th. I'm happy with that. I don't think they're going to get out of there. And I think Watford will. I just think West Ham and Bournemouth have too much of a quality culture. I believe their culture will pull them through this. I think they're a good enough team to get through Bournemouth. I think they've got a nice little academy coming through. And I think West Ham, if they, and also just an FYI, Aston Villa have played 32 games now, and Bournemouth, West Ham have also played 31, and Watford have played 32. So West Ham and Bournemouth, if West Ham or Bournemouth draw at any stage, Watford are jumping into this relegation zone. So actually,
Wow.
yeah, so Watford are actually right now not looking great. It's actually looking great for my predictions. But yeah, Watford, wow. Okay, so West Ham and Bournemouth have both played 31 games. Watford and Aston Villa have both played 32 games. And Watford are only up by 1. And who do West Ham and Bournemouth play this week? Bournemouth play Newcastle at home. So it's not necessarily out of the question. I think Newcastle should win that, but still, it's not out of the question. And West Ham play Chelsea, who West Ham have a really good record against. So
They do, don't they? They're a bit of a... Yeah, I'm worried about that game. I'm fairly confident, but I'm worried about that game as well.
Yeah, a bit of a bogey team there. But look, it'll be interesting. I actually think that you guys peaked against City. I think you guys really peaked against City. And I think this could be that game after the peak where you get brought back down by a team that you should be beating. And I actually think West Ham might win that game. I think West Ham might win that game, or at least get a draw. I think
we might actually keep a clean sheet, and I think we might win 2-0.
Well, you haven't watched too much of West Ham versus Chelsea, do you? Because West Ham, I believe, usually win that game 2-0. Let me have a look.
West Ham normally do win, I know. And I think the confidence of beating Leicester as well in the FA Cup might
Oh, my God. Look at this record, right? West Ham, the last game you guys played, 2019, at Stamford Bridge, was 1-0 West Ham. Before that, at Stamford, it was 2-0 Chelsea. Before that, it was a 0-0, a 1-1. Before that, West Ham won 1-0, 2-1 West Ham. Wow, West Ham have a really good record against you guys. That's going to be, I might live stream that game. That's going to be a ripper game. That is going to be an incredible game. That's going to be tomorrow when this podcast comes out. So yeah, that's going to be Thursday for us and Wednesday for you guys over in England. But wow, that's going to be, I reckon that'll be a good game, especially with West Ham playing for their survival. Like right now, they're above the relegation zone, but only by points differential. But they've got a game in hand on Watford, and they just need a draw to jump Watford. All they need is a draw, and they're at home. So I don't know. I'm taking them there. But that will we'll get into the FA Cup on a little bit later because those games don't come for. I think when do they start? So obviously United beat Norwich, Arsenal beat Sheffield, Chelsea beat Leicester, and City beat Newcastle. All the favourites got through there. Alrighty, guys, now we are on to the AFL, and there is a lot to talk about here because there's been a massive mess that's happened. For one, firstly we were going to get into a bit of a recap of the round that was, but you know, getting into the round that's about to come, which our tips will be on the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel. But we will talk about kind of what's gone on this week in regards to Victorians not being able to stay home and just them not being able to think about anyone but themselves. But we will get into that on
Victoria. Stay home.
I've been trying to say that for a while now. I've been trying to say that for every podcast. I'm like, stay home. Stay home, mate. That's all you need to do. It's police. Like everyone else is doing the right thing. Everyone else is doing the right thing. Look at Queensland. Look at New South Wales. Look at we're done. We're done. But anyway, let's get into the round that was first before we start ripping into buddy Mexico. All right. So the Sydney Swans and Western Bulldogs. The Bulldogs won 67-39. The Giants 66-64 over Collingwood. Big game there. 89-41. Port Adelaide Power over West Coast. You tip West Coast. I just wanted to remind you that. St Kilda versus Richmond. Wow. St Kilda 93-67 over the Tigers. 52-51, Carlton over Essendon. Fantastic. Well, not a fantastic game, but crazy ending.
Yeah.
Suns 64, Fremantle 51, Lions 83, Adelaide Crows 46. Lockie Neal, 6 Lions, crazy.
Yeah.
Geelong 47, Demons 44, and the Hawks 58, Kangas 54. Now, I want to quickly, just before we get into some of the beginning rounds, I want to just transition straight into Alistair Clarkson's comments on that Hawthorn versus North Melbourne game. It was firstly, I live streamed. It was a very crazy game in the end. Pretty boring game in general, but that last 5 minutes where the Kangaroos were down by 30 and then just absolutely flew home with like 4 or 5 goals or whatever to bring it within 4 for the last 3 minutes. With 5 minutes to go, or 6 minutes to go, 5 or 6 minutes to go, it was a 30-point difference. Then with 3 minutes to go, it was a 4-point difference. Then obviously the Kangaroos just couldn't get over the line in the end. But wow, like that game was crazy. I obviously did tip Hawks. I wanted Kangaroos to win, but I did tip the Hawks. What did you think about that game? Because Clarko's come out and he said basically that there's a lot of stoppages now. It's slow, it's unimaginative, and I'd actually argue that he's right. And I don't like Clarko. I don't like him.
He is right, but is that the sense of sport these days? You think of things they've implemented VAR and video ref and different types of ways of that. They are enjoyable and you enjoy watching and anticipating, but they slow down the game. And that's what we see in all sports, not just in the AFL. I guess it's starting to come to the AFL more and more. And I'm glad there's no, I guess, technology-based system.
Well, the only technology we have in the AFL really is if it goes, if the ump wants to check if it went for a goal or if it was touched or whatnot. But I know what you're saying. It is. They are probably slowly going to start to integrate it. I reckon they would eventually. But the reason why I think that it is slow and unimaginative right now is because obviously preparation for everyone is just up in the air. Like it's just the preparation is so hard with what's going on with the AFL. And we'll just bring it up now. With the AFL, they've obviously had to change a lot of fixtures this week because Victorians, they cannot stay home. They just can't. Anyway, they're not being fantastic state at this point. They're nearly becoming their own country. But Victoria have had to. Queensland have changed their government, their laws, so that if you're coming from Victoria specifically, there's a 2-week quarantine period. So if you go up to Queensland from Victoria, you need to quarantine for 2 weeks, which isn't something you can do in the AFL. You can't do it.
How come
2 games there? Huh?
How come Melbourne aren't doing that then? The Storm.
Well, the Storm aren't there. They're in Cog, remember? They came up to Sydney before that even happened.
No, they're in Sunshine Coast.
Oh, they're in Sunshine Coast. There you go. Well, this law only happened over the last couple of days, mate. Oh,
okay. They just got there in time, just in the nick of time.
Yeah, but the thing is that the Storm, with the rugby league, it's a little bit different story because it's only one team in Victoria, and they're already in Sunshine Coast. So I guess if they got their games in Queensland out of the way now, that they could kind of get away with it and then get back down to Victoria. But in the same sense with the AFL, there's literally 9 teams in Victoria, and there's obviously if Queensland's doing this, I'd assume that New South Wales may do this very soon because it's just how it's going to have to be. And that's just assumptions at this point. I'm not saying New South Wales will do it or West Coast will do it, but it makes it confusing because if the Suns and the Lions, at some stage, there is so many teams in Victoria that they're going to have to leave Queensland and go down to Victoria to play a couple of games. They're not then going to be able to go back to their home ground to play any games there because I think they're going to have to can the Queensland hub right now, and they're going to have to be hub in Western Australia or Victoria. And at this point, apparently Collingwood and Geelong are going over to Western Australia for their hub, and it's confusing at this point. And that's we'll get into that in a second. But the reason why I bring it back to the North Melbourne versus Hawks game is that right now there's a lot on everyone's minds, not just AFL. Like you couldn't just go out there and imagine just playing the game, getting into the game, and just having a rip in. You're worrying if one of those players have the virus. You're worrying about kind of how the AFL, if the AFL is even going to last this year. You're worrying about if you're actually going to play the team that you are preparing for. For example, West Coast and Richmond went to play this Thursday. That's been completely changed. And now West Coast are playing on Saturday and Richmond are playing on Sunday, and they're playing different teams. Richmond playing Carlton or something like that, and West Coast are playing Brisbane, Swans or something. I don't know. I'm confused right now. I'm confused.
Crazy. It's a weird.
Oh, man. At this point, it's just like, I want to see the AFL continue, but I'm as just a spectator, as a fan, I'm getting confused. Actually, this is a good question for you. Is this the time when you're going to be saying, okay, there's going to be an asterisk this season?
A what? Asterisk?
Asterisk. So basically, like, if whoever wins, it's a bit debatable. If well, like the thing is, and this is what Herbie James, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, he said to me, like, it's going to be this year is going to be the hardest that you to win ever. It's going to be this is the hardest year to win, and that gives it an extra incentive. But I just don't know. I think every other team and every other player and every other fan's going to be like, well, all our preparation, all our like everything that went into this season has just been completely different to every other year, and there's just everything is up in the air, and we can't really focus on footy. So at this point, and we're preparing for this game, and then we're going over to there, and then like we lose by 40 because we prepared for that team, not for that team. So we had a whole different game style to that team, and then we had to go. At this point, I'm thinking there's an asterisk. So it's like when a team wins, it's like a debatable. It's like a 50-50 kind of win. You know, like they won the season, congratulations. But in the same sense, we're not giving it to you on the same sense of like Richmond last year when they won in a fair season, or West Coast when they won in a fair season, or Geelong back when they won a fair season. It's like a kind of like a half win. What would you agree on that?
Mate, I thought the exact same thing. I thought in regards to the NRL, obviously fans are coming back now. I thought the exact same thing. And I think you're going to laugh at me here, but if Parramatta, say, for the first time in so long, were to win the premiership, they've got that favouritism. No one's got the crowd, and there's no travelling for teams like Newcastle, Parramatta having 3/4 of their game at Bankwest. I feel like if they were actually to win at the end of the season, there'd be a massive asterisk. There'd be people saying, well, they didn't have to leave. There were so many advantages. And I feel like that's going to happen in the AFL if they are
That's the advantages. Right there what you said. Advantages is the key word. Advantages is the key word right there.
Yeah, there you go. All those games at Bankwest. And it's the same thing. If teams are staying up and playing in Gold Coast area, that could be a big advantage for teams like the Lions and the Suns.
Yeah, no, it's well, obviously, yeah, it definitely
the Suns
is.
For the title.
The Suns for the title, yeah, mate. Well, they have to beat Geelong this week for me to. Well, to me, that's the thing. Another thing that we're going to get into in a second. Who the favourites are for the flag right now? But
before you say that, I want to say this. This is mental. Matt Brow 3 weeks ago was at $34 for the Brownlow.
Yeah.
After 2 fantastic games, Matt Rao is now the second favourite at $8 against
I swear
Patrick
before the season started, he was at like 81 or something like that. Like,
don't say that to me,
I'm pretty sure I saw someone on some comment in some Facebook group say something about $81 for Rao to.
Like I've still got Lockie Neal. Have you still got Pendlebury or something?
No, I think Lockie Neal's definitely up there. He did miss 6 shots. On this week. But no, I think Lockie Neal, I didn't have Pendles. I had someone in the Collingwood midfield. I didn't have Pendles. Pendles hasn't been exactly out of control this year. I think I had Adam Treloar actually, and he was just nothing going on there. So, but just to quickly bring back before we move into that area, I want to bring it back to the asterisk, because with what you said, I think the only team in the NRL who wouldn't receive an asterisk is the Roosters, simply because they've won 2 years in a row. And if they win again, it's just kind of like a continuation in a way. I don't see the same with Richmond in the AFL. It would be a continuation, I guess, but I don't see the same with Richmond because they've obviously struggled. And the AFL is a lot more of a difficult situation right now than the NRL, because the NRL has to really just focus on New South Wales and Queensland. Yes, there's a Storm, but they can easily just be moved out of Victoria. I don't even know if they're going to go back to Victoria. I don't think Storm will go back to Victoria during the season.
Wow.
At this point, why would you send them back down there? Because team like Queensland are going to be involved, and then New South Wales aren't going to. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen. So,
would you put an asterisk over Port if Port were to win? Because it'd be funny because there's not really any advantages as such, but they're really coming out. But I think it's just the players in general. So, are they a team you put an asterisk over?
Oh, it's so difficult because it's like you don't want to, because like they're playing so well. They haven't really played anyone specifically too big yet, but in the same sense, they are playing so well. Charlie Dixon's playing unreal, and they aren't at home, obviously, in Adelaide, where they've got a huge advantage in Adelaide. So they are disadvantaged playing at Metricon, where they might have to move again. I don't know. I just think that you kind of have to at this point, because there's so many teams that are moving from stadium to stadium, like they're being, it's just like they're being moved around.
Telling you now, I think travel in sport is the biggest factor, whether it be an hour plane ride or something. And it's such a big factor moving from state to state as well. But even just going to say, Sydney to Victoria for a game, or say the Swans going to Victoria, I feel like you get exhausted. It takes a lot out of you. And it's not just the fact that you're traveling, it's the fact that you've got to pack for your trip, get your gear. And by the time it all comes around, I think that becomes a disadvantage to the team who's going to that venue.
Yeah, 100%. But you do also have to realize that in America with the NBA and the baseball and the hockey, they travel every day. Like they fly every single day. So
Yeah,
it's
NBA
like,
is mental in that.
yeah, they fly every single day. So they'll play in Utah one day. They do try and fix it so that you're playing in the same area-ish most of the time. So if you're playing like Chicago in the Midwest, you'll probably end up playing the Bucks in the same trip, or you'll probably end up playing Indiana or around that area. But then again, that's not an actual full-on contact sport. So while your body is recovering, yeah, that travel aspect would be a huge factor, and that's why. Actually, funnily enough, it's really good when... No, actually, no, I won't say that. But I think the travel aspect is a huge thing. And with the fact that you don't know where you're going to be playing next week, you honestly, at this point, you don't know whether you're going to be playing in Victoria. You could be playing... you could be apparently playing the Suns at Metricon, but now, because of this whole thing, they might move the hub out of the Gold Coast because of the Queensland law. At this point, I don't want the season to be finished, but it's kind of getting to a scary stage, man. It's kind of AFL Island. It's kind of getting to a scary stage. But just before we jump into our tips, let's talk about the current favourites for the asterisk flag. Our current favourites on the flag. So, like, obviously, we both tipped Collingwood to win the flag, and they've been probably the best of the bunch, really, but not really, actually. Actually, look, I've still got them there, but let's go through it. So these are the favourites right now. So you got the Western Bulldogs, who a lot of people talked about being potential there. You got GWS, you got Collingwood, you got Port Adelaide. We're going to use West Coast because they technically were at the beginning of the season. Actually, you know what? We're not going to go through this because there's a lot of teams that you could take out and a lot of teams to take in. Who's your favourite for the flag right now? Because right now, no one's played exceptionally unbelievable, in my opinion. And if you want to talk about Port Adelaide, they haven't actually played anybody really of note, to be honest with you. But then again, could you class anybody as real note right now? Because Collingwood are a fantastic team, but I feel like GWS is their bogey team. I feel like GWS is the bogey team. But when they played Richmond, Collingwood drew. And they're not really a bogey team. That's just the two teams that you'd expect to be in the grand final. But when saying that as well, Richmond haven't been great. They haven't won since they've come back as well. So it's like, this whole season is just all over the shop right now. There is no real favourite. So who would you at this point be like, is there a favourite right now? Is there a favourite?
There isn't a favourite as such. You could argue that Collingwood is that up the top, but obviously that draw and GWS being their bogey team, I would say Collingwood. I think the Lions are another big... They're real competitive this season. I think they'll be right up there.
But they did struggle against they won by nearly 40 points, but they also only won by 40 points. Adelaide, they conceded 46 points to Adelaide. Like Adelaide
were quite good on the weekend. I watched a bit of that game. Adelaide weren't outstanding. Like, don't start commenting, what does this guy think Adelaide is good? They were decent against a very strong Lions side who Lachie Neale couldn't kick a goal, but he could kick 6 behinds, of course, as we all saw. The other team that I think is Port Adelaide. I think you're really all over on them.
I'm all over Port Adelaide. Yeah, I'm all over.
Yeah, I want to be, but I think they'll still need to play one of those tougher sides like your Collingwood or even maybe your GWS before I am completely convinced that Port Adelaide are the real deal. But at this stage, I would put Port Adelaide finishing about 5th or 6th.
Yeah, well, it's hard because if you look at Brisbane, mate, like they're actually, like I'll be honest with you, like when you look at Brisbane, they've lost to Hawthorn in the first game. They beat Freo by only 12 points, Fremantle, who are shocking. Then they played West Coast, who are just beyond shocking right now. And then they've played the Crows, who they still, they won, but it was the Crows, and they didn't really convincingly slaughter them, which they probably should have. I guess they play Port Adelaide this week, which is going to tell us a lot. That game will tell us a lot. But I don't know about favourites this year, man, right now, because there's 3 teams that I think would be the teams that I want to see teams go up against to prove themselves against. And there's going to be one team that you may disagree with me here on, though. So, obviously, Collingwood. We all know Collingwood are that team. So, Collingwood, I want to see, and this is the team I think you might disagree with me on, Geelong. And the reason why I say Geelong is because, yes, they've been struggling, but they also know how to put in a massive performance against the big teams. So when they're putting in a massive performance against the big teams, we're going to see the big teams, we're going to actually see good teams prove their worth. Because Geelong know how to keep it close to the shocking teams and potentially lose the shocking teams, but they keep it really close against the big teams. So that's the question that we're going to see with Geelong. We're going to see with Collingwood, and arguably, I would still throw out, buddy. I'd argue say Richmond still at this point as well. I'd argue say actually, you know what? I'm not going to argue Richmond. I'm going to say Brisbane. I'm going to say Brisbane. I'm going to say Brisbane because Richmond right now are not the benchmark. They're not the benchmark. So I will use Brisbane, but then again, I would also put Brisbane in a stage where I want to see them go up against Geelong or Collingwood to see where they are.
I wouldn't count Richmond or the Eagles out just yet. I think if Eagles lose this week, then they're not playing
Eagles
finals.
out, mate. I'm counting the Eagles
but,
out.
But Richmond have Demons, Kangas, GWS coming out, and I think counting them out right now is too early. We saw last year due to injury they had that struggle period, and look at them, they won the competition. So I wouldn't count Richmond out just yet out of that.
I wouldn't count Richmond out just yet. No, but I'm counting West Coast out. But the thing is that West Coast was meant to play Richmond this week, and whoever lost that, I would have counted out. Whoever lost that game, but that's been changed obviously. So look, I've watched West Coast multiple times this season. They were absolutely diabolical against Port Adelaide. They were absolutely diabolical. They got trounced by the Lions, and then they got absolutely slaughtered by the Suns. And right there, they're 3 winnable games if you're West Coast. They're 3 winnable games. If you lost to Collingwood, Richmond, and say Geelong, for example, you'd be like, okay, there's an excuse there. But I'm sorry. And the Suns have been great. And we talked about this last week, and we're not going to get into it again this week. But the Suns have been great, but I want to see them come up against a good team. Because they haven't came up against anyone. They came up against West Coast, who have been shit this year.
Is that what we're getting? Is that what we're getting this week, in your opinion, or you?
I think we'll see the Suns come up against a decent team in Geelong. I know I'm a Geelong fan. People are going to be like, "Oh, you're biased," but they're playing at Cardinia. They're playing in Cardinia, or GMHBA, whatever you want to call it, by the Alphabet Stadium. They're playing at Cardinia. If the Suns can win that, yeah, they'll probably prove themselves to me. But then again, Geelong also haven't been great this year. I want to see the Suns go up against Collingwood. I think Collingwood's nearly the only team that you'd nearly say at this point is the only team you'd want to see. And Brisbane go up against Collingwood the week after. So there you go. It's an interesting time right now. Lots of discussion points, but let's move into our tips. If you haven't subscribed to the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel yet, that's where we put all our tips up, and that would have gone up yesterday for you guys. So that's where our AFL and NRL tips are. So go and subscribe to that right Next up, guys, we've got the Rugby League, and it's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting week with the Sharkies beating their bogey team. They beat Manly. They beat Manly. Yeah,
Can we say the same for the old Tigers? I mean, we expected it, but the Tigers, their bogey teams are doggies. They do not beat the doggies much at all.
Yeah, and they flogged them. They touched them up. Well, let's get into the scorelines then. We'll get into the scorelines. So, Panthers obviously beat the Rabbitohs 20-12. Shocking game. The Storm 56 over the Warriors. Roosters 26-12 over the Dragons. 32-20 to the Cowboys and the Knights. You tipped that one. Titans. Yay! There we go.
That was one bogey team that got up.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah, especially at Suncorp. So 30-12 there for the Titans and the Broncos. If you're watching. I'm still laughing. It's Wednesday. Gee whiz. Parramatta Eels 25-24 Raiders. What a game. And you would have been like that. We were both live streaming that game. Absolutely cracking game. The Sharkies, up 40-22 over Manly. And then the final game was 34-6 for the Tigers over the Doggies. What do you reckon about that round, my dude?
It wasn't outstanding. There were definitely some games to take away. I thought
Saturday was outstanding.
Yeah, Saturday was pretty good. What, just Brisbane losing or just in general?
Well, Brisbane losing, but then there was also the Raiders-Eels game and also the Cowboys shocking the Knights. So there's 3 games there that are pretty good. Pretty
happy to get the old Cowboys tip right.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was good. Eels-Raiders, fantastic game of football. One game I'm not hearing a lot of talk about that I'm telling you now is a fantastic game of football, and they were right, isn't it? The Dragons and the Roosters. It really felt like an exact
Yes. I know why you're smiling, though. It's because last week you said it was going to be a close game. And I want to clarify here. Firstly, it's 14 points. So I don't necessarily think that'll be a close game. But what I will say to you is that there were so many injuries that after that podcast went out, there was so many injuries to the Roosters that made that a close game, you cheeky little bastard. I know why you're smiling. I know you're trying to claim that last week.
You know what? They did what they did against Parramatta. They scored tries in the last 10 minutes. It was real close. If you watch that game, you know how close the Dragons were to winning it. The Dragons were actually leading, I think, with about 17 minutes to go.
I think it was a draw. I don't know if they were leading. I think they were...
they were leading. They were
Really?
leading by either 2 or 4. I know that the Dragons were leading at a point in the match.
Actually, no, you would be right, because it was 4-0, then it was 10-0 Roosters.
What was half-time?
10, I'm getting there, 10-4. It was 10-10 at half-time, and then it was with 34 minutes to go. Zach Lomax kicked it to go up by 14 to 12 to 10. And then from the 51st minute onwards, it was just all Roosters. So
Roosters scoring in the last 20
but
minutes.
you've also got to remember that Tedesco was out before the match even started. You know, we had Radley, who's gone off now with a season-ending injury. Actually, that's something to talk about. The Bankwest Stadium injury toll. There's a lot of injuries right now, and I think we were talking about beforehand. Can you read out the injuries?
Let's get straight into the injuries. So round 7 as a whole saw some key playmaker injuries. I don't have the exact time period for these. However, I'll try and be accurate of what I know. Cameron Munster, that injury is looking like it will be a minimum of 3 weeks. Victor Radley is looking like he's out for the season.
Well, I don't changed my tip, by the way. I didn't even realise Munster was injured. I honestly didn't even know that Munster was injured.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
Wait,
I'm not a great rugby league reporter, am I?
That's changed your tip, did you say?
No, I said it could change my tip because the Storm Roosters is going to be a cracker game. That's going to be a ripper game. And I'm not. Don't you try and get my tips out of me early, you bloody cheeky little devil. Tell ya, I'm not telling you my tips.
Sam Verrills, he's gone for the season, so that's a big loss there for the Roosters, young gun. Victor Radley for mine. He's such a big loss to that team. He is a versatile player that reminds me of Mitchell Orbison, who can play in multiple roles, and I think they'll miss him. Isaac Liu has suffered a broken rib during the match. I don't think it was reported during the match, but he was subtly taken off. Mitchell Moses. Shit. Mitchell Moses
That's right, mate. Shit is exactly what you should be saying at this point.
Yeah. I think we'll be right. We've got an easy draw coming up, mate.
Oh, easy draw. Easy draw.
We've got the Cowboys, the Knights, the Tigers, and Manly. We'll win 3 out of 4.
Yeah, well, you lost the previous one to Manly, so maybe you can make it up with the beating them in this next match. So
maybe we can. Corey Horsburgh.
I love how you've just agreed to it now. You don't even argue with me anymore. You're just like, yep, it's 5 and 2
deals. Man, I gave up. Corey Horsburgh, he's looking like he'll be out for at least 10 weeks, which is huge. Yep. That is very close to the season, but if and when, because I think they'll be there.
And that story's been done to death, by the way, guys. We're not talking about the Horsburgh story here.
Get over it. Get over it. Besides the fact that he had Parramatta colours on him and that went everywhere, that was funny. But
move on.
Anyway.
Move on.
And finally, Will Hopewade. Will Hopewade, we both spoke on stream of our first try scorer. Blaze predicted Will Hopewade's first try scorer, but instead he went down in the 3rd minute of the match. He's got syndesmosis, so he'll be out for 6 weeks.
What?
Syndesmosis.
Do you know what that is?
It's a leg thing.
I don't know. I have no idea what it is. I was just wondering if you were buddy Dr. Hayden, but I'm
an NRL physio who I think he'd make a good installment of the pod.
Yeah, there you go. We can bring him on. We'll see. We can bring him on. But I want to talk quickly about the Roosters there. They still won that game, and without those injuries, they win by 3 cricket scores. 3 cricket scores. They won by 14, and they had no Tedesco and no Radley and no Liu and no wasn't Verrills out as well? Didn't Verrills go out as well?
Verrills is gone for the season. Yes.
Oh, really? So that means that you're telling me there was 4 massive injuries to that team, right?
It doesn't matter. The Dragons were good. They've got momentum, man. They've got momentum.
Yeah, good. Okay, I can't wait to see him tip them against the Raiders this week. So I want to talk about quickly. I love Lattrel, but his performance against the Panthers was absolutely diabolical. Like I've never seen. I actually think that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen a rugby league player play. I think as a whole, I love Lattrel. I always back in Lattrel. I always talk about Lattrel being a personal favourite of mine. I took him in my NRL draft, so you can't call me biased here or a media mongering hater dude of Lattrel. But his game on Thursday night was embarrassing. That was
He was
literally
terrible.
pathetic. He dropped the ball, I think, 6 times on his own. On his own, he dropped the ball like 5-6 times on his own. A whole team shouldn't be doing that in a whole game. He dropped it on his own 5-6 times. Honestly, I think the Rabbitohs win that game. We both tipped the Rabbitohs. That game was so shit on both ends. The Panthers got lucky.
You think without Lattrel, if Lattrel didn't play, Rabbitohs would have won?
Yep.
Ooh.
Oh, well, not if Lattrel didn't play. If Lattrel didn't drop, it wasn't as bad as he was.
Like make the errors, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's. I think the whole Rabbitohs team played bad, but I feel like it was emphasised because every time they started to twist the screw a little bit to get back in the game, Lattrel would drop the ball. They just drop it.
Do you think Penrith are as good as we think, or do you think Penrith just kind of got lucky as such?
I think they got lucky in this game. I think they got lucky in this game because they were not good. If they play a good team or they play a team that would just be, even if they play an average team, they say, I reckon the average team wins. I'm a massive backer of Penrith this year, but that game was not a good point to prove. That game was not a good point to prove for Penrith, and I think I am going to use the word lucky. You know, winners make their own luck. I get that, and I guess you could use that in a sense. But it was still a lucky win, in my opinion. Panthers got home in the end. Cool. Rabbitohs, absolute trash. But I think that both these teams were pretty average.
I thought the battle of the hookers was real good in this game. That was one of the highlights for me. I thought Damien Cook against Api Coruscant, they were both key.
I really rate Api. I do. I rate Coruscant.
I do too. This is a big call, but a lot of people are actually backing Api Coruscant as the New South Wales hooker.
Is he? Well, then he'd have to. Doesn't he play for Fiji?
I'm not too sure, but a lot of people.
If he plays for Fiji,
I'm seeing posts on groups and stuff. I personally disagree. Cook's shown how good he is, but
I know Damien Cook definitely should be. Damien Cook, in my opinion, definitely needs to be the hooker. That's no question for me. I have my doubts though about Api being able to play. I thought that he plays for Fiji as the hooker for Fiji, and if he did play that, he'd have to denounce Fiji and play for Australia to play in Origin, which I don't think would be the right option for him because if he did that, I don't think he's going to make the Australian team. So he would miss out on playing a World Cup, for example, which is in England next year, I believe, 2021. So I think, I could be completely wrong here. I could be completely off it. I can't remember. I don't know if Api Coruscant does play for Fiji. I know he's Fijian, but I don't know if he does play for Fiji. Has he played for Fiji before?
I'm not too sure.
I'm not too sure.
I know you were going to ask me.
Well, I'm not too sure either. I should know this, but I don't. But it would be interesting to see if, considering he is Fijian, I think he'd have a much better chance of playing for that Fiji team in the World Cup next year or just playing for the Fiji team in general. But if you play Origin, you can't play for anyone but besides Australia, which is why we never saw, the Benji over the years with New Zealand, and we never saw. We've obviously seen Tamalolo not being able to play because he represents Tonga. So that's interesting. But obviously, I do want to jump into the Titans-Broncos quickly. We're not going to talk too long about it because obviously I have absolutely slaughtered the Broncos on my live stream. And a lot of Broncos fans don't realise that I do still kind of vlog on behalf of the Broncos at games. And they don't realise that I don't hate the Broncos. I just, when it's a rivalry game, I hate you on that day, but I don't care anymore. But lots of problems there. Not Alex Glenn. It was Alex Glenn who came out and made a post, and this is the only thing I want to talk about in this game because I think the Titans are looking pretty good at the moment. I think we're looking pretty all right. But
I want to give the Titans one bit of advice quickly.
A bit of advice. Here we go.
Keep Ash Taylor in the 6. He's not a 7.
Well, he won't go back to 7. There's no way he'll go back to 7.
He is playing some real good footy. I think he's playing his best footy in that number 6 jersey. Jamal Fogarty's a good young half, but Ash Taylor in the 6. Woo!
I know, it's crazy. It's good, man. He is looking pretty nice there. And I did say for everyone to back him in, but obviously he does have his games here and there, but I've always backed him in. But what I do want to talk about is Alex Glenn. So he's actually come out with a post saying, everyone is entitled to their own opinion about us, but don't ever think we are happy with losing. That's a fair statement. You think you're hurting watching us lose 5 games in a row? Try turning up every single day, working your ass off to prepare well, and things still don't go our way on the night. Then have to deal with the criticism left, right, and centre from the media and spectators and fans. We get it. We ain't playing well, but we ain't quitting on nothing. Before you be quick to judge and take your anger out over social media, put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about people's mental state and the impact you could possibly have on those you want to share your thoughts with. I will always defend my mates and others being a victim of bullying. He does also then go on and say thank you to our fans who turned up to support us on Saturday night at Suncorp and our fans that stand with us through the lows times. You are the real MVPs, and when we bounce back, it'll be for you guys. Now, this is a personal opinion. I think that's the first part fair. I think it's fair enough on him saying from his end. I think from his end, that's fair enough on him saying. But I don't think he realizes, and a lot of people haven't realized this, he is also insulting the fans right there.
Yeah.
He's insulting the fans, saying basically, you're not allowed to have an opinion right now because they're putting in the work, they're working their ass off, and because that's not what you're doing, because you think that just because they're shit, they're not working their ass off. We all know you're working your ass off, man. Everyone knows you're working off. All the fans know you're working your ass off. But to come out and say that the fans are not allowed to publicly criticize the team, right? You're being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for this job. If you can't handle the public criticism when you're in the public limelight and you're playing like shit, yes, you're actually probably the best Bronco on the day, Alex Glenn. But besides that, people are warranted in their criticism of this team because they are absolutely, truly invested in that team. Their whole life is this team. Your time with the Broncos, you're a little bit of a different story. But there are a lot of players who come in and out, and who don't put everything they possibly can into the team. And even if they do, if they're shit, we're going to call them shit because they're not playing the standards we want our team to encompass. And with the Broncos right now, that club, as you know, Alex Glenn, if you're listening to this, that club is built on absolute success. They've always made the top 8. They've always been fantastic. And they've never had to have this adversity that you and the current players of the team right now are currently putting the team through because you guys aren't performing up to standards. You're working your asses off. Congratulations. But don't come and tell the fans they are not allowed to vent on social media in Broncos groups, on their own personal Facebook, because your job is literally, yes, play rugby league, but your job is also to play rugby league in the public limelight. Otherwise, you could play for the Burleigh Bears and no one's going to give a shit. Okay, you guys are shit. There'll be a couple of people who say you're shit. But if you're playing for the Brisbane Broncos, you have to understand that club just expects greatness. They expect greatness. And if you're not going to give them that greatness, then of course the fans are going to be frustrated because you guys, and you were part of it. Well, no, you weren't really part of it, but it frustrates me. It frustrates me when players think, oh, these guys don't know what they're talking about, so I'm going to come out and say, stop talking shit about us because we're working our asses off. Do you agree with what I'm saying, or am I reading too much into it?
Heavily agree, disagree in some points. So let me get into it. First, I want to say they didn't confront the media. That was one of the big things in that Roosters game, and that was one of the things that didn't help in relation to this post. Key word that you've read out that I have had in my head the whole time is that Alex Glenn has used the word bullying.
Yeah, bullying, yeah.
The word bullying. You are the captain of the Brisbane Broncos, as you said, a club built on success. You are the leader, and you are basically accusing the media, who I guess they are very tough, and fans who are
He's not accusing the media. He's talking to the fans, mate. He's talking to
everyone, but he's named everyone there. He said media, fans. Who else was there? Have you got in front of you still? There were multiple names there.
It's just everyone, yeah.
You know, and the word bullying shouldn't be thrown around in that contest. They're trying to get the best out of the player. Maybe people are being negative. Even people like Blaze putting on funny Instagram memes about the Broncos only because you want them to do well. It's very, very harsh to use the word bullying. I think it's been used on the wrong social media platform is not the way to go about it. I think even on the footy show, maybe to say, not the exact way it was said, but if you went on the footy show and said something similar, yeah, we can understand it's coming from your heart. We can't see that Alex, and I'm not saying he's doing this, I'm not saying you're not doing it, but we can't see that Alex Glenn is typing this and laughing. We don't know the emotion behind it.
There's no way. I looked at it. There's no way he was typing and laughing.
Oh, there's no way. But I'm saying social media can make you read a tweet anyway. There's people out here who are going to be angered by this. There's people who are going to laugh. There's people who are going to see different types of emotion in him. Obviously, he's writing it upset. We can all, most of us are smart enough to tell it. But as the captain of a club, I don't think it's right to put that on social media.
Yeah, no, well, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to tell people, he was trying to be the captain. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to be the captain. He was trying to make sure people understand that we are putting, and I'm okay with him coming out and saying, we are putting out everything into it, like trying to justify that they are fully in the game right now. Their minds are fully invested in the Broncos, and that's great if he had just said that. But he came at the fans, he came at the media, who he should understand, especially an experienced player, should understand what the media and what the fans are like, because the fans, they're not saying, they're not insulting your mother. They're not insulting your family. They're not insulting you on a personal level. Like, yes, there'll probably be some rando on Facebook who comes out and takes it a little bit too far. But in the same sense, majority, and I'd say 99% of the comments are directly related to your footballing ability. They're directly related to the performance on the field. Like if I'm going to go and say Milford, I'm sorry, but Milford, he actually put in effort on the game, but he has been shit this year. And does that make me a bully because I say that his footballing ability on the field has been shit this year? He could be putting in 24/7 hours of work. We get that. He could be putting in 24/7. But if I'm watching, and as a paying spectator, as everyone is, a paying spectator who either has a membership, has bought merchandise, has been to a game before, we have the right to criticize the players. We always will have the right to criticize the players, unless people are actually personally attacking you on a personal level, attacking you for in your family or stuff outside the game. Then fair enough. But if I'm saying that you're shit, Darius Boyd, you're trash, that's because right now, my opinion right now of his footballing ability is that he's trash. And that's not me being a bully. That's just me being an observer of the game that we are paid to. We pay to watch. Sorry, we pay to watch. So look, Glenn, Alex, I understand exactly what you're trying to say, mate. I do get that you're a captain. You're trying to defend your teammates and you defend your team. But in reality, I'm sorry, but you've got to really calm down and relax on telling the fans that they're not allowed. And you did say they're allowed to have their opinion, but then literally the next sentence you said they're not basically allowed to have their opinion. You said you're allowed to have your opinion. That's great. And then right after that you said, well, no, you're not allowed to have your opinion. So that cancels that out, mate. That cancels that first bit out. So Alex, I don't dislike you as a person. I think you're a great captain for what you did. I know what you were trying to do. And a lot of the Broncos fans didn't see it the way we are. But I guess that's because we're unbiased now thinking. And I think this has been really kept quiet because no one wants drama nowadays. No one wants any drama. There's too much drama in the world. But guys, that we've been definitely going on for quite a long time about rugby league as well. So we're going to jump into our tipping section, which is on the Intercept Podcast YouTube channel. So we will see you in a bit. Anyway, guys, that is going to do us for the podcast. We didn't get to the questions again, the listener questions again. It's so hard when there's so much to talk about and there's just so much going on in sport right now. But maybe we'll try and do something on Instagram for you guys and just do like a personal Q&A on Instagram to help out with that. But obviously, massive shout out to Entertain House here. Go and hit him up with a subscribe if you haven't already. And hope you've, I don't even know. I'm not even going to intro you anymore because everyone should know you.
They should.
They damn well should. So, it's been a fantastic chat. Obviously, guys, this weekend, we've got Ivan Gonzalez on Sunday at 8 a.m. AST. It will come out because the audio is fine for every other episode. So definitely have your notifications ready. Or if you're on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, or TuneIn, definitely get ready for that one because it's an absolute great. I loved it. It's a lot of stuff.
Next week we'll have to grab our little firecracker to celebrate our little milestone for our.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Our 20th episode.
I'll wear a party hat. I'll wear
there
something.
You go.
Oh yeah, there
Good
you go.
stuff.
There you go. So that'll be next week. But Ivan Gonzalez this Sunday, really looking forward to that. Fantastic chat with him about all things baseball and the White Sox and getting drafted and all that type of stuff and playing for West Virginia in college. But that will do us for today, guys. So if you're not subscribed yet, obviously go down there, hit the subscribe button, ding-a-ling-a-ling notification bell so you get a notification every time you upload. Every time I upload, we upload, buddy. Every time everyone uploads. Don't forget as well, please rate us on iTunes and Spotify if you get a chance. And we do appreciate you as always. So thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later. See ya.